Hi there everyone and welcome to a Saturday revision session. Today we're going to have a look at the difference between health and performance related fitness, or HRF and PRF. We're going to define the components of HRF and PRF, so the definitions there that are needed in both. We're going to examine the extent to which different components of fitness are required for your chosen physical activities, i.e. that's how to do a needs analysis. Design a combined approach to HRF and PRF, design a fitness test battery, explore the different ways to physically train, and then use the FIT formula when designing a training plan. So firstly, looking at health. Well, health is a state of complete physical and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, and that's from the WHO, the World Health Organization. Fitness is the ability to meet or cope with the demands of the environment. And then physical health is free from illness and injury, being able to carry out daily tasks and take part in regular exercise. Okay, so there are some key definitions that are useful to know. So health related and performance related fitness. So to make things easier for us, we're going to now call them HRF and PRF. So HRF describes the components of fitness that everyone should have a good level of to live an active life. Okay, so that's absolutely everyone in the world needs to have a good amount of those 5 components to be active, to carry out daily tasks without getting out of breath or feeling the need to sit down. PRF relates to some of additional components required for elite performance in some physical activities. So that's elite performance, and some additional components are needed there. So some sports will value certain component over another. Other sports might have 2 or 3 components that are needed to perform at an elite level. So let's take a look. So our key definitions for HRF. Well, the first one is strength, and this can be upper body strength and it can be lower body strength. So strength describes how much force your muscles can exert. Okay, so upper body and lower body. So how much force doesn't really matter about how long it takes you to emit that force, but it's the overall force that your muscles can exert. Muscular endurance, or ME, you'll often see, relates to the ability to contract your muscles over a period of time without fatiguing. And finally, body composition, or very often you could see this linked to BMI. So body composition related to the percentage of muscle, bone and fat in the body. So in order to be healthy, you need to have a decent amount of upper and lower body strength, a decent amount of muscular endurance, again upper and lower body, and then a healthy level of your body composition. So not too much fat, not too little fat, and a healthy amount of muscle and bone density too. So last 2 definitions in HRF. Well, flexibility, this relates to the ability to move limbs and joints through their full range of motion. Okay, again, so flexibility can be measured in every single joint in the body. Okay, so people need a good amount of flexibility going right into their older years in order to reach down, lift up something, maybe if you drop your keys or anything like that. Flexibility is important to be able to pick them back up and carry out daily tasks. Lastly, cardiorespiratory endurance, or cardiovascular endurance, it's also known as. So this is the level at which your heart, lungs and muscles work together when performing exercise for an extended period. So going back on those few, so most sports will have a need for most of those 5 components, some more than others. For example, anything in athletics would need a huge amount of cardiorespiratory endurance, whereas gymnastics might not need that as much, but gymnasts will need a high amount of flexibility. So our PRF components, so the first 3 are easy to remember because we have A, B, C. So we have agility, balance and coordination. The last 3 then are speed, power and reaction time. So here we can see a sprinter, Gina Akpein-Moses, and she would need a huge amount of speed, power and reaction time. Agility, not too much because she doesn't have to move side to side and change direction. She just needs to go in the one direction. Balance, yeah, quite important, but probably not the most important. Coordination, maybe the ability to move her arms and her legs at the same time, you could argue for. But for me, the last three would be the most important for her event. So some key definitions for PRF. Well, we have agility. And agility is the ability to change the position of the body at speed in a controlled way. Okay, so a sport like soccer, Gaelic football, basketball, all need to change direction very, very quickly in a controlled way and not falling over and losing control of your limbs. So that's our agility. Balance is the ability of a performer to maintain their center of gravity above the base of support, basically not fall over. So if we have someone's base, so their two legs, that's the distance between their 2 feet, their center of gravity needs to be able to stay somewhere over that. As soon as it goes outside of that, then more than likely the person is going to fall over. Okay, so balance is the ability of the performer to maintain their center of gravity above the base of support and not fall over. There's various other ways that you can explain balance. So in an exam, if it asks you to define balance, something that makes sense to the examiner in a sporting context is fine. So coordination, so that requires an athlete to use different parts of the body at the same time. So this could be feet to eye or hand to eye coordination. So games like camogie and hurling would require a huge amount of hand-eye coordination. So speed, very often, sometimes it can be so simple that people can get tripped up in an exam when they're asked to define something like speed. So speed is the ability to perform a task as quickly as possible. So these definitions for PRF are hugely valuable to you, and they'll pick you up so easy marks. So please take note of them. So that's our speed. Next we have power. So power is the ability to perform strength movements quickly. And then we have reaction time. So reaction time is the time it takes to respond to a stimulus. So going back to power, so the ability to perform strength movements quickly. So maybe in weightlifting, for example, if you are doing a clean and jerk, the athlete would need a huge amount of power, because not only do they need the strength to lift the weight, but they need to do it quickly to get into the right position and technique. A power athlete like a sprinter, again, would need a lot of strength as well as being able to move quickly. Reaction time, again in sprinting, is the time it takes to respond to a stimulus. So as soon as the gun goes off, the athlete needs to respond to the stimulus, which is the gun, and to get moving. So our summary of HRF and PRF. So this table is very useful for you if you want to take note of it. So we have strength, muscular endurance, body composition, flexibility, cardiovascular endurance. Again, that's also known as cardiorespiratory endurance. So there's 5 there in HRF, which everyone needs in the whole world, a good amount of, to carry out daily tasks and to live an active life. So going for a long walk, going for a hike, taking their shopping in from the car when you need your strength, go climbing stairs, you need muscular endurance, so on. PRF, then we have ABC is our first 3: agility, balance and coordination, and then we have power, reaction time and speed. Again, so some of these might be needed for some sports might need small amounts of them all, other sports might need 1 or 2. So that's our PRF. So the general public don't need to be speedy, or don't have to have a quick reaction time, don't have to have power, coordination, balance or agility really to live an active life, but having those will obviously benefit you and allow you to lead an even more active life. So taking a look at an exam paper here, so we have 2022. So here's an example of some questions which you can be asked based on some things that we've just done there. So we have define the component of performance related fitness, agility. Okay, define. So this is our key action verb here in the question, define. Okay, so you need to explain exactly here what agility is. Okay, and I would suggest writing a full sentence there based on our definition that we just learned. So the ability to change direction quite quickly in a controlled manner would describe agility. Then again, huge thing with Leaving Cert PE, can you apply your knowledge to maybe a sporting event of your choice here? So it pushes you and it tests you a one step further here. So we have outlined the importance of agility to successful performance in a physical activity of your choice. Okay, so here you would have to, sometimes this physical activity isn't named and it's just a blank box, so always your first couple of sentences or words should be in, and then insert your chosen sport. So in soccer, in Gaelic football, in basketball, in camogie, in hurling, you need to explain in detail why agility is hugely important to perform at the elite level. So let's take Gaelic football as an example. So agility will be hugely important in Gaelic football to allow the performer to change direction, to evade their defender when a ball is coming towards them. When they have the ball and they're on the attack, they need agility to change direction to get by the defender. Look, the list goes on there. So loads of other examples in Gaelic football that you can name. My suggestion would be to fill the full thing, the full box, the answer box, with as much relevant information as possible that can help your answer. Okay, so combining health and performance related fitness, and we're going to use rowing as an example. So this is a nice little table here where an athlete would like to combine health related fitness, because all of health related fitness is quite important for their sport, and then the necessary components of performance related fitness for rowing, and they're going to do that in their week. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday here. We have morning, we have afternoon, we have evening. So our day is split into 3 blocks. So taking Monday to start off with. So here we have before school, we have our 5k run. Okay, so that's one of our 2 cardiorespiratory sessions. Then we have school, then we have flexibility work using stretching, Sworkit, so that's an app. So there we have our flexibility. Next we have school, muscular strength and power work in the gym. So we have muscular strength and power in the gym. Next day we have a rowing session here in the middle. Okay, so there's the rowing session. Then we have rest. Thursday has school obviously, and then again muscular strength and power work in the gym. Okay, so there's session 2 there. Then we have flexibility work, so that's again could be used for our injury prevention. 5-a-side with friends after school, so that's a little bit of fun to avoid tedium or boredom. Then Saturday we have underwater rowing, so again we have our rowing session there. Muscular endurance body weight home workout, so quite a demanding week this now. So muscular endurance body weight workout. Rest, we have a long walk on Sunday. We have rest, our option for more flexibility if available, and then we have rest. Okay, so we have huge amount of time and effort and planning needs to go into a program like this, but this is how an athlete can combine health and performance related fitness. Okay, so how to measure our health and performance related fitness then, our HRF, PRF? Well, here's a handy little table. So we have cardiorespiratory endurance. How that is measured then is using the Cooper test, we have the beep test, we have the Harvard step test. Okay, so very often athletes will use one of those to measure their cardiorespiratory endurance. Muscular strength, well, we have hand grip test for the upper body muscular strength, and we have standing broad jump for the lower body muscular strength. Muscular endurance, we have the press up test, single leg squat hold, and then we have also a sit up test for abdominal muscular endurance. Flexibility, back saver, sit and reach. You also have various other ways that you can measure flexibility of the different joints, like a shoulder flexion test, getting the range of motion of the shoulders. Body composition, we have BMI calculation and skin fold test. Then we are moving into our PRF. So power, so in the lower body is vertical jump. Speed 0 to 10 meter, or we have the flying 30 meter sprint test. So certain sports will favor the 0 to 10 meter test and compare their result against the norms. Others will prefer the flying 30 meter test. Depending on what demands are involved in the sport, the coach or the athlete will choose to do one of those two tests, or sometimes even both. Reaction time, root or drop test, very often that can be also measured using a smart device app, a reaction time app. There's loads of them out there. Agility, we have the agility T test, balance, standing stork, and lastly wall toss test will measure the coordination. Okay, next we have fitness test and some questions based on it. So we have identify a test that can measure flexibility. Okay, hugely important now to take note that this word identify means name as well as explain. Okay, so in this case, what I would suggest that you do is that you name. So our answer here for our flexibility would be our sit and reach test. Explain, so a brief sentence explaining what that is. Okay, so name of the required test and a brief description of it. Okay, so a little description. So here the athlete straightens their legs, one leg bending up the other, reaching forward, keeping their leg straight. Something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Okay, so on the upper left here we have our Cooper test. So this is our 12-minute run. Run, walk, jog, crawl, even just get moving for 12 minutes. Preferably run and see how far you can cover. So you can compare that to the norms. That's our cardio test. In the upper right corner, then we have our press up tests, and that measures muscular endurance, and that's of the upper body. Over here we also have a muscular endurance test, which is a single leg squat hold. So here you can see the athlete bends their legs at one leg at 90 degrees, raises the other, and they hold that for as long as possible, and then we'll change over to the other leg. Our last two are our muscular strength. So here we have the hand grip dynamometer. So here the athlete will squeeze the hand grip dynamometer for as much as they can and get the result in kg, and use both arms. So one arm first and then the second arm after. And lastly then we have our standing broad jump. Okay, and that would measure muscular strength for the lower body. Moving on, so we have our BMI test. So here the athlete will measure their BMI, so body mass index, by first stepping on a scale and getting their weight in kg as well as their height. And then there's a chart where you can compare. So let's say we have the weight going up here and we have the height going down here. Where they meet, you'll see there'll be different zones and you can see which category you're in. Okay, lastly, down here we have the flexibility. So here we have the athlete here doing our sit and reach test. So one leg completely straight, the other one bent up, and they reach for as much as they can. And we have a shoulder flexion test. Okay, so the athlete, depending on the sport, might do both, might do one to measure flexibility. PRF, so on the upper left here we have the vertical jump. So we have the athlete here with their hand up against the chart, take a note of what number they're on, squatting down in number 2 there, and exploding up in number 3, and getting the difference between their jump and where they started, and that would be your score in centimeters. So that would be lower body power. Here we have overall body power and overall power. So here what the athlete would do is they have 2 or 3 kg medicine ball, 2 kg generally for girls and 3 kg generally for boys. They pick it up, squat down and throw it behind them for as far as they can, and take note of how far that went. Then they can compare that to their own score as a trainer plan develops. So here we have a flying t-test. So we have a start position here where the athlete just gets up to full speed. As soon as they cross these set of cones here, we have another 30 meters for the athlete to run through. So this distance here is our 30 meters, but at the start they are actually running into the start line. Okay, so this one here would measure speed. Okay, that's the flying 30 meter test. And then at the bottom we have a 0 to 10 meters. So we have standing start, 10 meters through the finish line there, like that. Okay, so that's our speed. So some more performance related fitness tests. On the upper left we have the athlete having their finger and their thumb very close to a ruler that their friend is about to drop. The ruler drops and then the measurement is taken where the athlete holds onto the ruler. That's done 3 times and an average is got from there. Okay, next we have our agility. So we have at cone 1, on your marks, get set, go. The athlete runs out, touches cone 2, side to side shuffle, touches cone 3, side to side shuffle, touches cone 4, side to side shuffle, touches cone 2, and then backwards jog to touch cone number 1, and the time is got there. So that's our agility t-test, which measures obviously our agility. Okay, and our reaction time is up here. This one here on the left is balance, and that's a standing stork test. Quite a difficult one, very hard to score well in, but that's a balance. So as soon as the heel comes up with the other foot in against the leg, the time starts, and then you can get that. Lastly, we have a 2 meter distance from the wall. We have the athlete throwing the ball against the wall with their left hand, and then they would catch it in their right hand to throw against the wall to catch in their left. So it's left, right. Amount of passes in a 30-second time will give you a good score to measure your coordination. Okay, so needs analysis then. Very, very important to be able to do this to conduct your PAP. So what is a needs analysis then? So a needs analysis is very important, as we know, to know for our PAP. It allows us to highlight areas of importance in a physical activity. And there are 7 key questions that you should ask yourself when doing a needs analysis. Okay, so whenever you decide what you'd like to do for your physical activity project, the first thing you should do in your copy on its own is conduct a needs analysis. So here's how to conduct one. Well, there's 7 steps. So number 1 is model. Is there a model performer in this sport who can be analysed? So when you're picking a model performer, it is good practice to pick someone who is maybe of similar age, definitely similar height and build, and using the same strong side as you. So if it's a team sport that involves kicking a ball, if you're left-footed, then make sure that your model performer is left-footed as well. Number 2 is muscles. So what major muscle groups are involved in this sport and how are they used? Why do you need to do that? Well, that will allow you to identify our muscles that are used and maybe allow us to avoid injuries as well. Okay, so what muscles need to be strengthened in order to avoid injuries? Energy systems are quite important. So how long does this event last? How much time is spent moving versus resting? Is there only one type of energy system used, or does any other energy system contribute? Speed of movement. How fast does the athlete need to move? Do different positions require different speed? So if you're doing a team sport, a goalkeeper's movement is very different to an outfielder. Even positions within a team can be quite different in terms of how fast they need to move. Why does that make a difference? Well, really, a centre back in soccer should have a slightly different training plan to a winger. Okay, because there's various different attributes that the players need to have. So we looked at avoiding injuries. So are there joints or muscle areas that are commonly injured by athletes in this event? Why are you asking yourself this question? Well, in your training plan, when you're designing one, you can avoid these. Okay, or design a plan to avoid it. Component of fitness required. So here you'd be looking at your HRF and PRF and identifying what components are required. And then extras. Are there any other factors which give an elite athlete the edge over their competitors? So is there psychological? Is there anything to do with preparation? What other extras does an elite performer have? So some key definitions then when we're looking at fitness testing. So fitness baseline data is the initial collection of fitness test data. Our test protocol is the procedures used to carry out a fitness test. So for example, if you are about to do a flexibility sit and reach test, well, the test protocol is the one to follow so that your result stands up to any of the norms and you can have an accurate comparison to see where your score lies. Normative data. So norms are hugely important in Leaving Cert PE. So normative data is a table of scores in a certain fitness test that can be used to compare your results to. So you might have results that might have an excellent score, you get between X and Y, then you have above average, then you might have average, then you might have below average, and then you might have poor. Okay, so the scores are then put into that table for you to compare your result to. Finally, fitness test battery. It's a collection of fitness tests, usually performed one after another, that measure the demands of a particular sport or activity. So when high-level coaches are designing these fitness test batteries, they need to consider, okay, well, what are we measuring? The components that we are measuring, are they needed for this athlete? And then they also need to decide what order are they going to put these tests in, because you don't want to do a really tiring test first, because then that will affect the results of the remaining tests that you've planned to do after. So you want to maximize the athlete's score, so a little bit of thought is required there. So in what order should my fitness test be in? Well, number one should be non-fatiguing tests. So resting heart rate, height and weight measurements, BMI or body fat testing. Then we have vertical and broad jumps. Okay, so these probably are the harder ones here, but they only require one jump, not really fatiguing. Then agility. So agility t-test should probably last between 10 and 15 seconds. Again, not too taxing. Once you do that, you have a bit of time to recover. And then on to maximal strength and power tests. Again, quite quick to do, not overly fatiguing after a period of rest. It will allow the athlete to perform their best in the later tests. Then we have our sprint and speed tests. Again, lasting probably under a minute, a little bit of recovery time for a few minutes, and then muscular endurance tests should be done. Then that leaves a cardiorespiratory endurance test at the end, which require the most amount of energy, but because a lot of energy hasn't been wasted in the previous ones, the athlete should still be able to get their optimal cardiorespiratory test as if that was the only test they were doing that day. So factors that might influence the results. So time of the day. Some people are morning people, some people are afternoon or evening people. Temperature, is the room or setting quite cold or warm? That can affect how people move. The sleep quality, if the athlete is tired, more than likely that will affect the result. Nutritional preparation, the surface that the tests are being carried out on. So if an agility t-test is carried out on a pitch, and a grass pitch, and the athlete has proper boots and studs, well, more than likely that's going to be quite different to a wooden floor that could be a bit slippy. So footwear being used, lack of warm-up, and then being observed by others can actually put people off when they're doing some fitness testing. Okay, so some exam questions now. Well, we have this one here from a recent exam paper. So we have health-related fitness is the same as performance-related fitness. Okay, so we've just found out that it isn't, but that's a statement. Discuss the accuracy of this statement. So here you would have quite a bit of space. So you would firstly define what health-related fitness is, and then what performance-related fitness is, provide some of the components, discuss about how everyone in the world needs a good amount of the components of health-related fitness, whereas only elite athletes will need some of the performance-related fitness components, and then you can draw links between the two. Next one will be to define the component of performance-related fitness, agility. You can see that one coming up there again. And again, outline the importance of agility to successful performance in a physical activity of your choice. Next will be a fitness test battery, so describing what that would be. So your definition there would be of your collection of fitness tests which are generally done one after another on the same day. Okay, and why it's done? Well, that's because to measure the components of fitness that are relevant for a particular sport. So with reference to a named physical activity, identify 2 relevant performance related fitness demands. Okay, so here you would have again reference to your physical activity. You name that early. So in javelin, in gymnastics, in dance, the 2 components of performance related fitness that are important are whatever. Okay, and you would name and explain them here because it does say identify. So provide the component as well as a brief definition of what it is. Okay, so for example, in sprinting, power is needed. Power is the ability to carry out a strength movement quickly. Okay, so that's hugely important there. Okay, so then we have name a physical fitness test a coach could use to assess each of the performance related fitness demands identified by you. So here you would have the performance related demand, so that would be your power, your reaction time, your coordination, your balance, etc. And then the physical fitness test there that you would use. Okay, very interesting question from a few years ago. So we have the heptathlon in women consists of 3 running events, 2 jumping events, and 2 throwing events, all carried out over 2 days. So day 1, 100 meter hurdles, high jump, shot put, and the 200 meters. Then we have day 2, long jump, javelin, and 800 meters. The main qualities of a heptathlete are speed and strength. High levels of concentration are required throughout the 2 days of the event. Okay, so here we have describe fitness tests for speed and strength suitable for a heptathlete. Okay, so let's look at speed here first. So we have 100 meter hurdles, requires a good bit of speed. We have the 200 meter race. We also have the 800, not really that relevant to speed. So the main 2 would be our 100 meter hurdles, and we have 200 meters. So the options here are your 0 to 10 meter sprint or your flying 30 meter test. So either one, well, I will go 0 to 10 meters because that measured the acceleration and it's very relevant to the 100 meter hurdles. If you wanted to get flying 30 meter test, well then you draw the link to the speed required in the 200 meter and the speed maintenance, so how an athlete can maintain it over a larger distance. Fitness test for strength, well, because they have high jump, they have shot put, they have javelin, they have long jump, you could do either lower body or upper body. So upper body you could have your hand grip dynamometer, lower body you could have standing broad jump. Standing broad jump is probably a good one to do because of the jumps that are involved there. Okay, so hugely important to have good knowledge of fit formula then. So the fit formula can be used to gradually increase aspects of a training plan in order to see progressions. The fit formula is composed of 4 different elements, and these are frequency, how many training sessions occur in the week, intensity, how intense the sessions are. Use the RPE, rate of perceived exertion scale, to measure this. You could also use heart rates thresholds here as well. We have time, so the amount of time that an athlete spends training, and then we have type. So this refers to the type or style of training being used. So just to take a brief pause here and think about this. So the fit formula is used to, 1, design a plan in the first place. So how often is the athlete going to train? How intense is it going to be? How long are they going to spend on each training session? And then what actual type of training are they going to do in each training session? As well as if the athlete maybe has diminished returns and their gains are tapering off, or maybe even they're getting a little bit bored and things are becoming a bit tedious and tedium is setting in, then the fit formula can be used to maybe change things up. So can you increase or reduce the amount of frequency the training sessions are in a week? Can we up or lower the intensity? Can we vary the time? And then even can we vary the type of training? So the fit formula is used for that. So I mentioned about intensity, and the rate of perceived exertion chart can also very often be called the Borg scale. And the Borg scale of rate of perceived exertion is very, very simple. It's ranked from 1 to 10. So looking over here on the left, we have number 1, very light activity, hardly any exertion, but more than sleeping, so watching TV, etc. Then we have number 10, max effort activity. So feels almost impossible to keep going, completely out of breath, unable to talk, cannot maintain for more than a very short time. Then somewhere in the middle, if we look at 7 and 8, well, vigorous activity. So this is borderline uncomfortable, short of breath, but can speak a sentence. So in order to make the necessary adaptations from physical training, an athlete must progressively overload their body. If a session is too easy, the athlete is not challenged sufficiently, too hard, and the athlete won't be able to train for long enough. So the RPE scale can help athletes measure this intensity. So taking a look at types of training then. So the first one is circuit training, and it involves doing a series of exercises in stations which are broken up by a period of rest. So looking at the image, so we have stations here, we have squats, push-ups, jumping jacks, lunges, plank, side lifts, and we have the time there. So we have 60 seconds of squats, we have 60 seconds push-ups, 30 seconds jumping jacks, 45 seconds lunges, plank 30 seconds, and side lifts for 30 seconds, with a period of rest in between each one. So maybe a minute or 30 seconds between each one. Then that whole circuit would be repeated a few times. But the circuit training can be useful in developing cardiorespiratory endurance, muscular endurance, skill. So one of those stations could be a skill-based circuit station, power, strength, and flexibility. Continuous training. This involves athletes working continuously for a minimum of 20 minutes. Athletes can work at below their maximum heart rate, and this form of training is beneficial in developing cardiorespiratory endurance and muscular endurance. So this would be going out for your jog for over 20 minutes. That would be continuous training. Fartlek training. So this word means speed play in Swedish. So fartlek training is a form of continuous training which involves changes in some aspects such as terrain, speed, and incline. Okay, so hills are used, raising and lowering the speed are used, the incline can be also altered here. So often these changes can happen in response to landmarks in the area or can be timed. So for example, we could have someone who sets off on their jog and they see a hill coming up and decide to really sprint up that, and then down the other side they might take it really slow. Then they might see a landmark like a telephone pole in a short distance away and decide to sprint to that, then take a break, then they might jog, walk, so on, and just vary the intensity of it. So really good for developing sprint speed and cardio as well. Interval training then. So interval training is involving the athlete working quite intensely for a period followed by a timed rest period. So we could have a list of exercises for maybe 30 seconds and a 1 minute 30 second break in between. Okay, so generally at a intense level. So this form of training can be helpful in developing speed, strength, and endurance. High intensity interval training, so even higher intensity here, so generally called HIIT. So HIIT involves work at a very high intensity for a short time, with the rest periods being active at a lower intensity. So an example of a HIIT session would be 15 seconds of sprinting, and then we have 45 seconds maybe at a jog. Okay, so and then that would be repeated. So the effort is generally in the anaerobic zone and is beneficial in developing both anaerobic and aerobic components of fitness as well as muscular endurance. Okay, so you can relate this to weight training in the gym as well. So maybe there's exercises that could be done quite at high intensity, so heavy enough weights for that might take about 10 to 15 seconds to do, and then we have maybe jumping jacks in the rest period. Okay, so that would be high intensity interval training. Weight training or resistance training, there's 3 types. So we have body weight, machine weight, and free weight. And this form of training, when done correctly, is beneficial in developing muscular strength, muscular endurance, and power. it's important to have correct technique and use the right progressions before adding too much resistance. So generally, for progressive overload, an increase of about 5% to 10% each week it would be recommended here, and more so towards the 5% to start, and then as the athlete kind of develops quite quickly, up to 10% can be added. So definitions then, we have a repetition or a rep is the number of times you lift the weight. So example, 10 reps. We have set, the amount of times you repeat the cycle, so 3 sets of 10 reps. We have 1 rep max is the maximum amount of a person can lift once. Then we have 10 rep max, the maximum a person can lift 10 times. Plyometrics then, so here we can see our athlete in the top right using the boxes to jump from. So this involves a series of high intensity exercises consisting of explosive movements. This type of training is very effective for developing power and generally suits well-trained athletes. Cross training, this can be quite useful for many athletes. So this is carried out to enhance the athlete's performance by using a variety of different methods. So cross training can be used to avoid tedium, or when an athlete is injured in a particular part of their body and want to use another area to maintain fitness. So for example, we could have a swimmer who maybe has a sore shoulder or has injured their shoulder or elbow and they can't swim and can't work on their cardio in the pool. Then they can jump on a bike and work on their aerobic fitness or cardiorespiratory fitness in that way. Again, if someone is getting bored maybe of swimming, they can just use a rower or a bike or treadmill to work on it as well. So approaching health-related fitness and performance-related fitness. So here's a sample planner of the different activities that are going on in the week and the intensity. To why is it done that way? Well, to avoid burnout and just to make sure that the athlete is going in the right way. So here's an example of our fit formula in use. So on the left we have frequency, how often the activity is performed, intensity, we have time, and we have type. On the top we have cardio, muscular endurance, muscular strength, and flexibility. We can see how many times per week it's done. We can see intensity, heart rate is measured, 60 to 90% of heart rate that will develop cardio over 20 minutes. Here's some samples, and so on and so forth. So this is how a fit formula would be used in a training plan. Okay, so that's us then. So we've had a look today at health and performance related fitness. We've defined the different components. We examined the extent to which your chosen physical activities require the different components of fitness. So that's a needs analysis. We looked at designing a program to develop HRF and PRF, designed a fitness test battery. We looked at the different ways to train, and then we looked at how to use the fit formula when designing a trainer plan. Thank you very much for watching, and best of luck with your studies.